Don't you think this is starting to wear on me? You've been raining down like hell. I'm weak. I have tried to give you my soul, but you can't love something you own. It's too late to repair what we made. What can I do? Time flashed by and I woke up on the other side of the moon.
G'day everybody and welcome to my channel. You got me in stitches. I'm Anna and I hope everybody is having a really good week and where possible doing lots of sewing. I am coming in at you today with a video on showing and telling you guys how I go about thrifting patterns, whether they are vintage or regular modern patterns. This was just bought out of one of the lovely ladies that commented, and I kind of leapfrogged that idea and thought maybe I would actually talk through how I go about deciding on what patterns, especially vintage. I will show you a bit of a demonstration and a bit of a mock-up, so I set some patterns up as if I was in a store. Obviously some of you guys have seen my thrifted videos and things like that, but just for demonstration purposes, because obviously I'm not going out. A lot of places are closed for obvious reasons, and yeah, so I will talk through and show you guys how I make those decisions. Also, the mannequin is wearing pattern New Look 6304, which is this one here, and it is view D, which is that one there. And this again bought out of the wonderful idea that JJ from the Camden Stitch, and I will link her wonderful channel below, and she was doing a few videos on budget sewing and thrifting and things like that, and it was really good videos and everything that she compiled there. And so the fabric is 100% cotton. You guys who follow me anyway already know this, but for my new viewers, thank you so much for stopping by and subscribing. Very grateful and very appreciative. But yes, 100% cotton, and this was originally a cover for the bed, and it was immaculate condition, and there was so much fabric. So I'd also made a vintage looking dress, which I believe was a butterick pattern off the top of my head, and also I managed to eke out the shirt that you can see behind me. The buttons are the style that you hem it in, so I had great fun hammering those in. Righto, I have just set up a little display as if it was based on a display at a store or a market or anywhere that sells patterns. So I have a few varied patterns here, predominantly vintage, because today's video the emphasis is on vintage because there's a lot of things to think about with them. So usually what I would do is, say for instance, if they had them set up in a basket, which primarily they do, I would just quickly flick through like this, and I kind of have a good eye straight away with what I am looking for. And also if they're just a little bit sort of just tossed, again you can quickly look through. And then if it's not too busy, and or if there is a vendor there or the store owner, usually if you just ask them if you could just take off their little display and perhaps just put it somewhere, and then you could spend a little bit of extra time sorting through what they have. Now in here, these pittings I got from a store that kind of recycles things, and they collect various things, usually perhaps from homeowners that are setting up and emptying out auctions and things like that. And this particular company would go in and salvage various things. Now, I don't mind too much of a condition of what a pitting looks like on the envelope or anything like that, within reason. And this particular place where I get these pittings from, they have put it in a little wallet there, and they have also made a note. So they've put the number of the pitting, and they have just clearly stated that piece 5 tie end is missing, and if this pitting has been cut or not. Now, not everybody does that, and sometimes you would purchase a pitting and you would get home and perhaps a piece or two is missing and or torn off completely. Now, for the most part, I can rectify it as long as the pieces are not too difficult to remake, and if they were too big, then obviously I would either make the decision that I would not like that pitting to come home with me, so I'd actually make a note of the pitting number and put it in my little book, and or because I hope to have an area where I can kind of set up my sewing area in a bigger space later on, I also think of wall displays. I also consider the cost. Now, some can start off with literally 10, 20, 30 cents or something like that, and sometimes they can go up to quite a whole bunch of money. And again, it depends how rare a pattern is, how much I would really like to have that in my collection, and also the condition of it. Some patterns are looked after really well, whilst others are just treated, yeah, pretty badly. I also like things, for instance here, the previous owner has a little note there and a little diagram of perhaps what he or she would have liked to change on that particular style there. Also, perhaps the store people have included little things there. Again, here on this pattern, the owner has put a little written note there, and I do like those touches, and sometimes you'll actually find them on the tissue paper. Now, I don't mind if the tissue paper has been cut. I'm kind of enough in my sewing journey that if I needed to make alterations, size up or size down, I can do that. And to be fair, no one is a pattern size anyway, so you would have to make adjustments anyway. And also, even if you didn't, sometimes for whatever reason you purchase a pattern and it just may not look how you kind of hoped, and then you would add a few tweaks as you went along anyway. Moving over here to the basket, I've just, for display purposes, just put a couple of patterns in there. I would sort through those, and again there is a relatively good condition, very old pattern there, and I would look through and make sure that not too much of the writing and information on the back has been destroyed, and also I would look inside and where possible actually take out the pattern pieces, but for the most part I would actually see if the instructions were included and to see how good the instructions were, in the sense of could I actually understand them, because vintage patterns are sometimes a little bit sparse on their instructions, and also the condition, because if there's an important step, if there was an important step that had been destroyed by stains, I'd been ripped off, then again, if it was a pattern that I couldn't really configure how to sew it together, it would either be purchased by me and it would be for display or wall hanging, or I would dismiss that and again write a note of the pattern number in my book, so later on I may come across that same pattern. But as you can see on this one, it is pristine. So that is a really good find. Now sometimes it's not always possible to take out the tissue paper, so what I would do is count how many pattern pieces are on the envelope. Then I would take out the pattern pieces in a folded manner, and if for instance like this piece, I would then unfold in its entirety and look at the condition. Now what I meant by sometimes you cannot always take out the pattern pieces, as in you can take them out of the envelope and everything like that and count them up and see if they are all present and correct. But also if you are in a store or area where there's kind of a little bit of restricted space going on and there's other customers and things like that, you'd have to be mindful. And also you don't want to tear the tissue paper, especially on an old pattern like that, whilst you're looking. So I usually think, now again here you would see, even without me having to unravel all that, that is really good condition. And therefore, as you can see, this one came home with me. I counted up all the pieces and made sure that everything was present and correct. You see the little pieces here, and also there's not too many pattern pieces to that particular pattern. But you can imagine unraveling all this in the store one piece at a time. Not only is it time consuming, but also again space and being careful that you don't want to damage the pattern. But again, just based on this piece here, it is a really lovely piece in a really good order. And it's amazing, isn't it, how they perforated the pattern pieces there. And yeah, that was the very basic markings that they had there. Also, when I'm looking for patterns, although I have preferences to the era of the 1940s, I also like the 60s, and a lot of the 1940s patterns are quite rare for obvious reasons and pretty much expensive, so I do seem to manage to pick up quite a lot of 60s patterns and a few 70s. I don't mind a few patterns from 1970s. I'm not really somebody that likes the 80s. I do have one or two patterns that are from the 80s, but no, I'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. And yeah, I do like, for instance, the style here. Now again, here some of the patterns were collected and put in this baggie here, and overall, although one or two small pieces were omitted from the envelope and there's a few marks and things like that, it was still enough that there was enough pattern pieces in there. The instructions were really good, and that's why they came home. Now occasionally I have come across patterns in, say, a job lot, and you go through obviously and check as much as you possibly can, and sometimes you get there and there's literally just one pattern piece and no instructions and nothing else, and that's really disappointing. But again, you just make a note in your book, if you like to keep a little notebook and everything, of that pattern number, and then you look for that when you're sourcing patterns from however you look for them. There's so many different ways. Pattern destashes on various multimedia sites, and again some of the big selling sites on the interweb sell job lot patterns and things like that. And Also moving over here, you get free paddings. Again, this is just for example. You get the free paddings in sewing magazines. I've just taken out of my little baskets just a few there. These are the modern ones that I have decided to keep out the sewing books, magazines if you prefer. And yeah, so a lot of my collection is made up from the sewing magazines and things like that. And again, even there, it has a little bit of a kind of a boho look, even maybe a little bit of 1960s going on there. And for instance, this pattern here, here's a wrap look and just something maybe relatively quick to sew up, something like for the summer. So yeah, that's another way of sourcing pattern, but with sewing magazines and things like that, they are predominantly modern patterns, although they do modern patterns with the vintage vibe and everything going on, but nothing beats an original, as you can see from the collection here. And I have just put that there for demonstration purposes, just to hold up the patterns here. But again, a little toast rack going on there. And if I have projects on the go, I actually use them. I have a few vintage toast racks and they can double up as maybe patterns or your mail. You can put your mail in there if you don't need to do anything important, and just keep everything neat and tidy. And again, I've only just put one or two, but the width between there is about 1 inch, so you can quite easily get 2 patterns in there depending on the thickness of the pattern, or even 3, and then maybe 3 in there. So that's just a little idea there, a little bit of recycling, and also adds to the aesthetics of perhaps your sewing area. Also, another thing that I noticed about vintage patterns and the way they used to style the envelopes, things like that, the beautiful hairstyles that they had, and also the accompaniments of having accessories. So the ladies have their gloves there, and the way they wear their hair. And again, on this pattern, she's a little headpiece going on there. She's holding her gloves. And then if you think of more modern patterns, just for an example, I don't know, to me it's different, isn't it? And I just think, I don't know, maybe gone are the days of how ladies and gents used to dress. I mean, even on the 70s pattern there, I don't know, there's just still something that you don't tend to get on, say, a modern pattern. I don't know, maybe they're just a little bit more clinical. I don't know, tell me what you guys think in the comments below. I hope you have enjoyed kind of a little bit of a starting point there of how I seek out patterns, especially vintage patterns, for those that have not ever really gone down the route of looking for vintage patterns, and perhaps maybe do not know where to even start looking. Thrift stores, op shops, whichever you like to call them, charity stores, they are a really good place to start. And sometimes if you go into them and ask the people that work there, sometimes they will actually keep some by for you, and or they tend to perhaps are a little bit knowledgeable as to where else to go. Trunk sales, auctions, people that are obviously selling their houses and they're listed in, sometimes you can go in and they have open house sales there. Also the interweb itself and the big sites on there are very good for sourcing, especially vintage patterns. If you have seen something through a friend or a neighbour or a family member, and you thought, oh, I really like it, but for whatever reason, if a friend, a neighbour does not want to give up their pittons, then there are lots of different avenues to source. But again, friends, neighbours, family, things like that, if people have been sewing and they have kept a lot of their vintage pittons, then again, that is a really good place to start asking and inquiring, you know. And you never know, they may, perhaps reluctantly, but they may also sell or freely donate their pittons to you. And again, just you start off with one pen, and then before you know it, you may have 3, 4, 5, and then it goes into the 10s, 20s, maybe hundreds if not thousands one day. But it's a wonderful experience to go down. And also, it's not just the journey about the vintage patterns, it's also the journey of learning the history and everything behind the patterns, who designed them, maybe who own them and things like that. And also just general interaction with people and having that rapport with having like-minded friends, family, or even complete strangers. I have been just literally walking, and I remember I had a couple of pittons just under my arm, and a lady had stopped me and just got a talking point going, and then obviously one thing leads to another. She had a friend that also had pittons, I think, stitched in her attic, and yeah, you just go from there. And it's amazing how you just go down kind of it's like a map. You start off, you look at your start destination, and it's amazing where all those different roads takes you. And again, that's the same with anything, to be fair. I think life is a journey. We each individual have our own story and everything, and anybody that sews and collects things or whatever the craft is, there's always a start point, and it leads to a wonderful journey. Now, the cost, I will reiterate, yes, you can get vintage patterns at such a reasonable cost, and sometimes free. It depends on who has the patterns and what they are willing to do to let go of them. And also sometimes, depending on where you go, if you're thrifting, antique fairs, there's just so many places. And again, sometimes if you purchase a certain amount, they will give you a big discount. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I've even made something for somebody, and in exchange they have given me some vintage patterns. So the world and that journey is such a wonderful leading place to go, and you don't know how the journey will kind of foresee itself and everything like that. But it is a really, really good one. But it's an experience, and believe me, you'll get different feels of things. But again, if you are on a budget, and again, I think inexpensive pittons are the way to go to start with, and then you just gradually build up. But again, some people just do not like vintage pittons for whatever reason. They they just do not like them, and again, that's fine. But again, you can still get the same journey with modern patterns. It's exactly the same, it's just they're modern. And again, there you can find lots of modern patterns at thrift stores, you know, junkyard sales, anything like that. You'll be amazed at what you could find. Also, bear in mind, if you are starting out perhaps in your sewing journey and for whatever reason you automatically like vintage, just again bear in mind about the insides and everything like that. Does it have the instructions? Are you able to follow those instructions? Are all the pattern pieces present and correct? Are they in really good condition or relatively good condition, or just enough good condition that you are able to master your sewing journey with that pattern? Now, a couple of my patterns are beyond help, and I have put those aside because again, I just touched upon, sometimes it's just really lovely if you're like me and you're kind of a little bit artistic and things like that, and you have ideas and displays. So some of my vintage patterns that are really distressed, and sometimes like I said, I have had a pattern and there has been nothing in it except for one tissue pattern piece. So, but again, if it's aesthetically pleasing and it's something that I like, then I would incorporate that in a vintage display. Wall hangings, things like that. You could do decoupage, anything like that. It's never to just look at something and think, yeah, and then toss that. There's always something else to do, to give. Also, a little while ago now actually, perhaps 2.5 years ago, I had this idea. Unfortunately it hasn't actually come to any fruition, and that is because I am a techie idiot. I just haven't got any idea, and it scares me because if you, I don't know, push one button and it's wrong and it sends you off somewhere else, and yeah, that is a bit of a fear of mine. And obviously there are people out there, I know there's classes and lessons and experts, but again that costs money, and that is something that I unfortunately cannot afford to do. And also I don't really want to pay for classes and lessons and things if I struggle with learning, teaching technology, and also if anything goes wrong it's like, oh no, and then you may have to call on an expert and then it costs a lot of money. But yes, I kind of, when I was going through my pattern journey of vintage style patterns, an idea brought out, and again I don't go on the interweb on these big selling sites. I have a friend that's a bit of an expert when it comes to one particular selling site. It starts with a letter and then it's a 3-letter word. I don't know if you're allowed to say it or not. I know people do, but again I'm just playing it safe. And so sometimes they set everything up and then I go and look through for the job like vintage patterns, and I tend to, like I said, I have certain eras that I like, which is the 40s and 60s, a little bit of the 70s. You know, if there's a few modern patterns kind of tossed in there as well, that's okay. Really don't like 80s patterns, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2, and even those I know I would actually just tweak. Then this idea came and I thought, it doesn't matter actually if there's 80s patterns in that or whatever the era of patterns. So I actually purchased quite a few what they call job lots, and yeah, so I have everything set up to go in the sense of my idea, something that goes with it, but it's something to do with patterns and other bits and pieces. And yeah, so unfortunately it hasn't come to any fruition, but I just, it's like anything, hope sometimes is a wonderful thing to have, but it's a two-sided coin, isn't it? Sometimes for whatever reason, if it cannot happen, the other side of that coin is hope can be really sad and it can let you down. And unfortunately that's where I am now, and I kind of think, oh no, someone's going to come up with my idea before I get it out there, or if I eventually do get it out there, and then someone will take it and then yeah, it'll all go But yeah, so I actually have quite a lot of patterns, and I think it was last year, wasn't it, when there was on one of the media sites, everyone, oh my goodness, it was like vultures in for the kill of all these patterns and everything like that, and it was just the pattern swap and everything like that. And yeah, I had a lot of patterns, but I didn't get quite as many back. I got quite a few, and again you have seen those, and I did specific videos of just my pattern collection, modern and vintage. And yeah, so, but there's lots of ways, and I mean also pattern swaps are a fantastic thing. If you have a best friend or anything like that, family members, or a place where you go and have classes and there's patterns that you like. Also sometimes if there's sewing days and things like that, sometimes there's a table just designated for patterns, and then you just swap your patterns, which I think is a fantastic idea, and also with fabric and everything like that. So it's a really wonderful thing. But yeah, I was just like, still finds me a little bit emotional because I had this idea and I think it would actually really work, but again I can't really talk about it because, you know, got to play your cards close to your chest, haven't you? So yeah. Righto guys, I think I've covered pretty much of the basics there. Again, if you have any specific questions, please put them in the comments below, and please feel free to send me an email and I'll get back as soon as I possibly can. Just stuff at the moment, things are a little bit up and down, so maybe might be a little bit slow on the uptake with the email. As one lady could verify, it is coming, my lovely, you know who you are. And it just hasn't sent yet. It's got a little bit of a mini essay going on. Anyway, that's beside the point. So yes, please feel free to ask me anything in the comments, and I hope you've enjoyed this. Just a little insight of how I or how this transpires to, if you have the idea of going out looking for pigeons, whether it's modern or vintage and you're new to this, and where to go. And before you know it, there's so many outlets, and it just leads from one to another, and it's pretty phenomenal, to be fair. And believe me, that little collection that you started will definitely grow. They will breed. There will be hundreds of them, so unless you're disciplined, which is also good as well. But yeah, so that's it guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please stay safe with everything that's going on right now, and hopefully we get lots of extra sewing in. And take care guys, much appreciated. And if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, and yeah, the other one's there as well, isn't it? So righto guys, have a fantastic week and see you soon.